Welcome to another episode of the Impro podcast. My guest today is Alex Whiteley. So you run a podcast called the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast. Can you tell me a bit about that?
I wanted to create something about Shrewsbury, about my love for this town. My ethos is to tell a story of a name above a door. That's that shop you walk past all the time and you don't know what goes on inside that building. Let's tell that story and let's sort of try and draw people into, not necessarily just to come and buy things, but to say hello to the owner and to know what their story is. And that's what the Shrewsbury Biscuit is all about. It's not just about business owners, though. It's about charities and events and about people with interesting stories, artists, authors, culture in general. And with over 500 episodes gone, it's a great project to be working on, and I absolutely adore it. I'm in a bit of a transition at the moment. I've spent just under 10 years as a support worker. The job was full of complications and confusions, and I was really struggling with it. And I was actually diagnosed with PTSD, childhood trauma, work-related stress, and I had no idea these things were going on in the background. I've decided to step away from support now. I feel like with what's going on with my mental health, I don't feel like I can offer what I used to be able to offer to other people. I'm actually just got a job at a factory at Muller, which is like, sounds like a mad thing to do, but it's well paid. And I get to just switch off and to just do a job. I don't have to be responsible for somebody's life. I don't have to be on my game all the time and have my game face on whilst I'm hiding my pain behind me. I've always wanted to sit behind a microphone and create content for a living. Not just create content, but to have a steady job in like radio or podcast. I gotta say, your music choices for the Steve Cripps episode were phenomenal. The second song you played really actually made me feel quite emotional. So I love what you do. Really do.
Great, thanks. So I'm going to play you a piece of music and I want you to tell me what it makes you think of. So that's anything that comes into your mind, sort of thoughts, ideas, emotions, and it's completely improvised. So what are your thoughts on that?
The first few notes, I thought of this scene in Batman where his parents get killed. It just took me to Gotham. It really did. I actually wrote down triumph through sadness. And that is, I guess it's because of a lot of what's going on with me at the moment, learning about PTSD and my own history and past and stuff, that through these terrible things that happen to us that have long-lasting effects, there can actually be success. And to be able to build on that. So the second thing I wrote was the grind after struggle. I feel like something sad has happened, something sincere. It doesn't have to be sad, something very emotional, something deep. And then the grind afterwards of building up after that. And that's what I thought of.
Was there some sort of resolution?
In my eyes, my personal sort of background and what I think about is how to live a normal life after tragedy. It's like, how do you fit in amongst the world whilst so many bad things have happened and just live that rat race, that day-to-day life? So for me, that's what it feels like. I feel like that is the triumph and that is the outcome, is to be able to live that normal life like everyone else, when really you should feel sad and you should probably fail. I feel like that's what resonates with me.
I'd like you to tell me a story of some kind, and I'm going to improvise a soundtrack to the story.
I was within eardrop or within a few feet of possibly having a bad effect on one of the biggest mic drop moments in comic book history. And I am talking about an event that was talked about by Kevin Smith, who is the movie director and podcast pioneer on his shows. And it was the ending of the Walking Dead comic book, one of the biggest independent selling comic books of all time. It literally just ended. Just nobody knew. And of course, I host the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast. In Shrewsbury, not only are we the birthplace of Charles Darwin, we also have Charlie Adler, who's the co-creator of The Walking Dead. I was hosting two podcasts at the time. I was hosting a podcast called Thor's Kin, which is about bringing people together. And a lot of the content was geeky, cultured movies, TV, comic books, and kind of things. I also covered the local stuff. So one of the first celebrities, big guests that we ever had was Charlie Adler. Now, this guy is phenomenal. He's one of the most down-to-earth people you'll ever meet. He's worth a lot of money, but he's also an advocate for young people and art, and he is happy to speak to anybody. He's so down-to-earth. But he comes around my house, and I've got my co-host who lives in Vermont on the laptop. I cleaned my house top to bottom. I was like, this house has got to look spotless. I bought in some nice teas and some nice biscuits. He walks in, oh, just a glass of water, that's fine. I did this nervous interview. It was fantastic. It went really well. Tom Bruno was a bit cheeky because he was asking questions that was a bit difficult. I was like, Tom, I'm in the same room as this guy. You can't be asking these kind of questions. But anyway, I got invited to a comic book event called Comic Salopia in Shrewsbury with the Shrewsbury Biscuit. We had a studio in that place for 2 days, and the idea was that if you've ever been to a Comic-Con, they hold panels where they sit and speak to various people in the comic book world, and our studio was right next to where the panels were being held, so people would come from the panels straight into our studio, and we'd interview them. And we spent the whole 2 days doing this. And I remember towards the end of the weekend, standing with my co-host at the time, Shane, and Charlie Adler, who'd just been on my podcast. We're best mates now, you know. He's standing a few feet away from me talking to this gentleman. And I walk up to him and I say, oh, Charlie, we didn't get an interview from you from Comic Salopia. And he looks at me and he looks quite cross at me. And he goes, I'm really busy, Alex. I'm closing up now. I've got to go. And he walks off. And I was like, Charlie, one of the nicest guys I've ever met, has just been a bit strange with me. And I said, I just couldn't get it. And skip ahead a year, right? A year, I opened up a studio in the Parade Shopping Centre in Shrewsbury. It was a very nice favour. There were empty units in the shopping centre and they were letting me use it as a studio. I arranged a group of guests to honour the opening of this brand new studio, the Shrewsbury Biscuit. And one of the guests was Charlie Adler. So he comes walking in and he sits down. And we're face to face, and we start recording. And I'm like, "Hey man, how you been? You been busy?" He's like, "Yeah, I've been busy." And he goes, "Oh, I've got a bone to pick with you, Alex." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And he says to me, "It was last year, and I'm stood talking to the only person in the whole of the UK that knows what is happening with the Walking Dead ending. There's nobody else in the UK that knows about it apart from Rob Kirkman, who's in America, and you." I was standing there with a live microphone within 10 feet of me. So when you come and ask me for an interview, I was so nervous that you'd recorded the whole conversation and you were about to ruin this mic drop moment. And oh my, like I said, if you Google Walking Dead ending, the whole world was talking about this because, again, it's such a huge IP. It's massive. I have these mixed emotions. I want to cry because I thought, oh my God, Charlie Adler isn't annoyed with me. There was a genuine reason. And oh my God, I was so close to one of the biggest moments in comic book history. But also, I like to think I'm trustworthy. People, I work around with press embargoes and things all the time. But it was just so nice that Charlie Adler, not only was he not cross at me, but this moment had stuck with it. He was like, I was so stressed for months that the leak was going to come from the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast about this thing. So that is my story about how I was really close to one of the biggest mic drop moments in comic book history.
Okay, great story. So in terms of the music, I was going to go for this sense of anxiety that then turned into relief, I guess, when you realised that he was worried that
I had no idea this thing was going on. There was a sense of wonderment and intrigue in that moment. I'm sat there in my house. I'm waiting for him to knock my door, and that's like that beginning, that intrigue. That kind of, how is this gonna go? He's gonna like the biscuits I bought, and then there's the me quietly stepping towards him on the stairs at the comic Salopia, ready to speak to him, and then that kind of like confusion of this stuck with me for a while, and it obviously stuck with Charlie for a bit as well because he was worried that I was going to ruin his and Rob Kirkman's big surprise. You hit that on the head a bit. I was expecting to have a couple of goes at it, but I feel like that kind of gentle sort of tiptoeing towards that intrigue and investigating what was happening, and then the forlorn bit at the end was that kind of, oh, what is this thing? I think he got it.
Thinking away as if it was a soundtrack to something in a comic universe.
Yeah, I think that I really did enjoy that because of how gentle you went with it. I think there's different types of anxiety. There's that kind of like gentle tapping, like this could be bad, this could be bad. And then there's the kind of, oh my God, this is terrible. What we're going to do, panic. And I feel like you got in that music, the first part, that kind of gentle worry that you get with anxiety, that kind of little tapping, that nervous little tap. This could go terribly bad. I think both me and Charlie felt that. I think you did well with that.
Story number 2 then.
My wife is Colombian. She's from Colombia. And we've been to Colombia a couple of times to go and see her family. And it's amazing going to Bogota and been to lots of different places on the outskirts and stuff. It's been really nice getting involved with a beautiful culture and a beautiful country. But when we first went in 2013, one of my wife's rules was when we get into the back of a taxi, I'll do the talking because there are a couple of complications. The taxi driver might try and rip us off, or there's muggings and things that happen in Colombia like they do in most major cities. And Bogota's like a big city. After a couple of days, I got a bit more comfortable. And I'm like walking to the shop and I'm going to buy things. And I'd learned how to order a beer, una cerveza, por favor, all these kind of things. There's this one night where we go out with my wife's cousin, and she's an actress over in Colombia, so she can get us into nice bars. She can take us nice places. She knows where to go to give someone a good night, and we have this amazing night. But my problem is, when you go and have a drink in Colombia, you don't necessarily order a round at the bar. You order a bottle for the table, right? So we're all drinking these spirits, and I get drunk and a little bit too brave, if you like. And by the end of the night, I'm in a taxi, and bearing in mind, my wife is like, you don't speak in the taxis, I'll do all that. I'm hanging out the window. Bogota, I love you. I'm so drunk. I'm waving at people out this taxi. The taxi driver's loving it. I'm being a complete idiot, right? And the last stop is this amazing bar that Jimena, my wife's cousin, is taking us to. And it's a kind of a swanky place where you might find the odd celebrity or two. But at this point, I think my wife's had enough. She's, no, we're going home. So we pull up outside the bar. And I'm like, I'm going to go for a wee in this bar. So I ended up paying like a tenner or something to go in this bar just to use the toilet. It's ridiculous. So I go to this bar, and it's a bit like a giant mansion. It's not like your normal bar. I remember coming outside, and there's all these people surrounded there. And I see my wife, she's in tears. I'm like, what is going on? And I walk up to her, and she's pointing at what is like Colombia's version at the time of Robbie Williams. His name's Fonseca. And in Colombia, he is an A-lister. People love his music. All right, if you like Latino music, you'll love Fonseca. And she's crying. And I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. Me being drunk and really brave, I walk up to Fonseca and I bear hug him and I put him down. He's the look of surprise in this guy's face. I bear hug him and I put him down, and I was like, I don't know who the F you are, but if my wife loves you, then I love you. And his bodyguards are starting to surround me, and he's waving them back. No, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. It's very nice you meet me. It's nice to meet you. My wife is behind me with her hands over her mouth, and she's like, what are you doing, you idiot? So then I get obviously told off by my wife, and we have a very awkward cab ride on the way home. But that look of like shock on my wife's face as I've picked this guy up, I would never normally do something like that. I have social anxiety. I don't know what happened. I probably could have got battered by his bodyguards, and rightly so, because you don't just pick someone up like that. That's very inappropriate. So that is my story of absolute chaos in Colombia.
Going to start in the taxi where you said you were riding out the window or something like that, and it's crazy, chaotic, dangerous, fun. And then you go into this other bar to go to the toilet. Do you remember what the vibe was like in that place?
Do you know the house in Interview with the Vampire? The French sort of interior with the plants all draping down, the big high pillars to the ceiling. It was that French sort of mansion vibe. And by the way, like the bars and clubs over there, if you go over there not knowing anything about Colombian culture, you would be completely shocked by what you're going to see, because 1 minute you're going to see kids dancing salsa, proper salsa. I mean, talking young people, like, and then next thing David Guetta will come on and they're all jumping around like everybody else, and then salsa will come back on, and that is like the norm. Yeah, so there is a real like a Latin music vibe to that place. It's not just a myth. It's not a stereotype. That is their way of life. It's really incredible to see.
So I'm going to try and get a sense of that. I don't play Latin really, but I'll try and get a sense of the Latin. I play like dodgy British Latin. So a sense of that crazy time you're having, and then a sense of where you go and bear hug this Colombian actor. I'll try and get a sense of your wife's expression of just surprise, disgust. Tricky, especially as I don't know anything about that kind of music.
It is a tricky one because it's not your traditional story, is it? It's about a guy who's just absolutely out of control. I just want to let people know that I listen to this, because I will share the link, and I know there's probably people that know me that listen to this. I am not the kind of guy who walk up to someone and just pick them up and swear at them like that. So don't think badly of me.
Did that do anything for you then, the piece of music?
Yeah, I really liked it. Because when we go out and have a drink and we do these strange things that we do, and we've had a few, there is that moment of sort of chaos, but it's like excitable chaos, an excitable puppy. And I feel like you got that dude did the soundtrack of my life, really. I could see myself walking out of this club or this venue and seeing my wife like crying and being like, oh, what's going on? And then that moment of boom, as I'm picking the guy up and looking around to my wife, and she's like, what are you doing? I'm actually really humbled by your talent to be able to do that out of a story I just told you. That's actually quite complex. You know, the other one with Charlie Adler as well. Not easy stories to tell you, so hats off to you. So.
Thank you. Just going for that Latin vibe, and then it's just going out of hand, and the sort of discordant stuff coming in.
You say you don't have a massive understanding about the Latin music, but it fits because I'm a British bloke in an alien world just picking up things he shouldn't be picking up. But Fonseca, if you're listening to this, I'm very sorry. I hope you forgive me, and I hope you're doing well.
What did you get out of this podcast?
So music is something that I'm envious about because I can't do, but I absolutely love. And it's woven into every sort of fabric of my fiber. And there are different musics that I need to get me through the day. And the kind of music you make, part of everything for me. I get so emotional just listening to music. Duel of Fates is one of my favorite pieces of music of all time. from Star Wars Episode 1. The music from Up makes me cry every time I think about it. When it comes to piano music and the kind of music you make, I feel like it's that simplicity that's really hard to come across. And after listening to your interview with Steve Cripps and how you put it all together, I was so excited to come and speak to you. And I feel like making a soundtrack of someone's life and then the complicated crap that comes with life is not an easy task. So thank you. I really do appreciate it.
It's nice to have a fan.
And I'd like to invite you on my show as well. I have another show. I have another show called The Biscuit Guy, which I'm trying to launch because the Shrewsbury Biscuit is very Shropshire focused and it's also quite sophisticated, family friendly. I wanted the opportunity just to rant at the world a little bit and throw a few fricks into it, you know? So I like to invite people to come on that show to have a glass of wine, relax, talk about what you want. The way I describe it is, it's really good to rant. It's really good to rant about good things and bad things. So whatever you're passionate about, whatever you're angry about, whatever's annoying you at the time, get it off your chest. And that's what the Biscuit Guy comes in.
So if people want to check it out.
Yeah, I'm on iTunes, Spotify. I have a website called the Shrewsbury Biscuit Podcast.co.uk. And I also have a podcast called The Biscuit Guy, simply.
Thank you very much for being on the podcast. Yeah, it's been very insightful.
Join us next week for another episode of ImproPod. Thanks for listening.
The ImproPod podcast is slowly becoming a global phenomenon, featuring guests from Barcelona to Lockhart, Texas, with stories and listeners from all over the planet, from Vanuatu to Chongqing. That's why I've made this interactive map, where you can listen to stories and explore their locations, find out approximately where the guests were interviewed and the listeners are. It's a completely new way to experience the ImproPod podcast. You can explore the map at impropod.com and on the Instagram page. Would you like to be a guest on this podcast? If you're into telling stories that inspire improvised music and exploring our relationship to music, then please get in touch. Email guest@impropod.com or send a message via the ImproPod Instagram page.